Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to another edition of ReWatching Legion. Today I'm talking about Season 2, Chapter 18. I'm just going to be sharing my general thoughts after having just finished rewatching this episode. In this episode we see Melanie slash it's the Shadow King, trying to convince Sid that David is the true villain of this story. And David does not do a great job, defending his case because he spends the whole time torturing Oliver without double checking if the Shadow King was still in Oliver first or not. So yeah, that's what this whole episode mainly focuses around, them still trying to get to the body, but the Shadow King having set up this whole elaborate plan to convince Sid that David is the bad guy, which he's not 100% wrong about, but he's manipulating certain facts, like the fact that David was in a mental hospital and tried to kill himself because the Shadow King was messing with his head. That was one of the voices he was hearing. So it's just really interesting, this episode. I really enjoyed it. Like at the very beginning, we get a little flash of Apocalypse, David, and Lenny, which the first time watching this, I just kind of dismissed. I was like, oh, that's a cool thing. But on the rewatch, I'm like, oh, that's what he looks like in future Sid's future, and that's Legion, Destroyer, Killer of Worlds, which is something Melanie, aka the Shadow King, in this episode drops that line in this episode, which I always love. I love when you get the name of something in something. So the fact that they kind of labeled him Legion, I really enjoyed that part in this episode as well. But yeah, I like just getting that little glimpse of seeing the Apocalypse David, or Apocalypse Legion in that case. So that was interesting. It was cool to kind of see the Carries versus those guys in blue. Were they monks? Were they not? I'm guessing they were monks because they were outside the temple, but they also came from a hole in the ground, but the hole in the ground connected to the temple, so I'm guessing they're monks. It's hard to say, but there was a lot of them, and Carrie beat them all up, and that was cool to watch. So I enjoyed that part of this one. What else do I have written down? Yeah, but this one mainly was a lot about Melanie, who, the Shadow King took Melanie's face in this one, or was in Melanie in this case, and using David's past and future and private moments against him to convince Sid that he's not the greatest guy. And in David's defense, some of those things are taken out very much out of context, but at the same time, some of the things he just fucked up on. You shouldn't lie so much, David. It's so unnecessary. But I also understand where he's coming from. But yeah, and then we end this episode off with Farouk finally getting his body after kind of, distracting David and kind of convincing Sid, or for the most part, at least planting the seed in Sid, that a pretty big seed in Sid, that David is the bad guy of the story. So we kind of leave off into the final episode of this season with what's it gonna be? It's gonna be a showdown between these two, which I'm excited to rewatch. I love that upcoming that fight scene between those two, and I'm really excited to get to that next episode. So that's all my thoughts for this episode. Sure, let me know in the comments below what you thought about this episode. Thanks again for joining me today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and have a good one.